Arrogant billionaire forced into marriage with his uncle's plain daughter, then fell hard. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. And now, let us return to our main character. He was 34 years old, a billionaire by inheritance and by talent, and he had never once believed the word no applied to him. Ethan Hale sat at the head of a long walnut conference table on the top floor of Hale Group headquarters in Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the room, revealing the New York skyline glowing in the late afternoon light. To Ethan, the city was not beautiful, it was obedient. Every building, every street, every dollar moved because men like him decided it should, until today. Across from him sat his uncle, Richard Hale, the man who had built the family empire and still controlled the final shares through a carefully written trust. Richard's hands were folded calmly, his silver watch catching the light. He looked relaxed. That alone told Ethan something was wrong. "You are late," Ethan said coldly. Richard smiled faintly. "You always say that when you are nervous." "I am not nervous," Ethan replied. "I am busy, so say what you came to say." Richard leaned back in his chair, unbothered by the edge in his nephew's voice. "The board meets in 30 days. After that, the trust transfers full control. Or it does not." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I already run this company." "You manage it," Richard corrected. "You do not own it. Not yet." Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Then Richard spoke again, slow and deliberate. "You will get married." The words landed like an insult. Ethan laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You called me up here to joke?" "I'm serious," Richard said. "Married, properly, within 3 months." Ethan pushed his chair back slightly. "I'm not some desperate heir from the 19th century. This is America. You do not get to arrange my life." Richard's eyes hardened. "I do get to protect the legacy I built, and I will not hand it to a man who treats everything as disposable. Companies, people, women." Ethan stood. "You are threatening me." "I am offering you a condition," Richard replied calmly. "Marriage, or you lose controlling interest in Hale Group." The room felt suddenly smaller. "You cannot be serious," Ethan said. "Who would you even expect me to marry?" Richard paused, just long enough to make the answer sting. "My daughter." Ethan froze. "You mean—" He stopped himself, disbelief flashing across his face. "Your daughter who lives quietly in the suburbs, the one who never attends events, the one everyone calls plain." Richard did not flinch. "Her name is Clare." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "You want me to marry a woman I barely know, for business optics?" "No," Richard said evenly. "I want you to marry a woman who does not want you for your money." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "This is blackmail." "This is a test," Richard replied. "One you have been failing for years." The city outside continued to move, unaware that a man who had everything had just been told he could lose it all. Ethan turned back to the window, his reflection staring at him in the glass. He had always believed power meant choice. Now he was learning how quickly choice could be taken away. And somewhere across the city, a woman labeled plain had no idea her quiet life was about to collide with a billionaire who thought love was a weakness he could control. Ethan did not sleep that night. The city below his penthouse pulsed with light, but inside, everything felt still. He stood by the window long after midnight, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand, replaying his uncle's words again and again. Marriage, or you lose everything. By morning, the decision had already been made. 3 days later, Ethan's black sedan pulled into a quiet residential street in Westchester County. The houses were modest but well kept, framed by maple trees and trimmed hedges. This was not the world he knew. No gates, no guards, no marble driveways. He checked the address twice, irritated by the unfamiliar setting. "This is it," the driver said. Ethan stepped out, straightened his tailored coat, and walked up the short stone path. Before he could knock, the door opened. Richard Hale stood there, calm as ever. "She is expecting you," Richard said, stepping aside. Ethan entered the house, his shoes sinking slightly into a soft rug. The space smelled faintly of fresh bread and lemon cleaner. It felt lived in, real. He hated how disarming that was. Then he saw her. Clare Hale stood near the kitchen counter, holding a mug with both hands. She wore a simple sweater, dark jeans, her hair pulled back loosely. No makeup that he could see, no jewelry, nothing that tried to impress. She looked up. For a moment, no one spoke. This was the woman he was supposed to marry. Clare met his gaze without flinching. Her eyes were steady, observant. Not shy, not eager, just present. "So," she said quietly, breaking the silence, "you must be Ethan." Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but there was no weakness in it. "Yes," Ethan replied. "I am." Richard cleared his throat. "I will give you two some privacy." When the door closed behind him, the room felt smaller. Ethan wasted no time. "I will be honest," he said. "This marriage is not my choice." Clare nodded. "I assumed as much." "It will be an arrangement," Ethan continued. "Public appearances, family events, nothing more." She took a slow sip from her mug, considering him. "And what do you want from me exactly?" "Discretion," he said. "Boundaries, no expectations." Clare set the mug down carefully. "And in return?" "You will never want for anything," Ethan replied. "Financial security, a comfortable life." For the first time, something flickered in her expression. Not anger, not hurt, something closer to disappointment. "I already have a life," she said. "It may not look impressive to you, but it is mine." Ethan frowned. "Then why agree to this?" Clare looked him directly in the eyes. "Because your uncle asked me if I believed you were capable of becoming a better man, and because I do not run from difficult things." That answer caught him off guard. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table between them. "These are the terms." Clare opened it slowly, reading every page. She did not rush. She did not ask questions until she reached the end. "You forgot one thing," she said. Ethan raised an eyebrow.
"What is that?"
She slid the folder back toward him. "I will not be treated as an embarrassment, in public or in private. If you cannot agree to that, there is no deal." The silence that followed was heavy. No one had ever set terms with him before. Finally, Ethan nodded once. "Fine." They shook hands. It felt strange, too formal, too final. As he turned to leave, Clare spoke again. "Ethan." He paused. "I do not expect love," she said, "but I expect respect." He looked at her for a long moment, then replied, "We will see." Outside, as the car pulled away, Ethan stared ahead, unsettled. He had entered the house certain he was in control. He left with the uneasy feeling that something had already shifted. And Clare Hale watched the car disappear down the street, her hands steady, her heart racing, knowing that a life she never asked for had just begun. The wedding took place 2 weeks later. There were no flowers lining cathedral aisles, no childhood friends filling the pews, no romantic music swelling in the background. It happened in a private hall overlooking Central Park, attended by lawyers, board members, and a handful of relatives who smiled for cameras and whispered behind gloved hands. Clare stood beside Ethan in a simple ivory dress that fit her perfectly without trying to impress. No diamonds, no dramatic veil, just quiet elegance. Ethan noticed, though he would never admit it. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, polite applause followed. Flashbulbs lit the room. Headlines were already being drafted. That night, Clare moved into Ethan's penthouse. The elevator doors opened to reveal glass walls, polished stone floors, and a view that stretched for miles. Clare stepped inside slowly, absorbing the space. It was beautiful in a way that felt distant, like a museum. "This is your room," Ethan said, gesturing down a long hallway. "Mine is on the other side." She nodded. "That is fine." There was no awkward pause, no attempt at forced intimacy. They passed each other like professionals closing a deal. The next morning set the tone. Clare woke early, unpacked quietly, and made coffee in the kitchen as sunlight crept across the marble counters. Ethan entered an hour later, already on a call, issuing instructions without raising his voice. He ended the call and stopped short when he noticed her. "You did not have to do that," he said, nodding at the coffee. "I wanted to," Claire replied simply. She handed him a mug. He hesitated, then took it. It was exactly how he liked it. Their days settled into a strange rhythm. Publicly, they were flawless. At charity luncheons, Claire stood beside Ethan with calm confidence, answering questions gracefully, never oversharing, never shrinking. At one gala, when a donor's wife made a pointed comment about Claire's background, Claire smiled and redirected the conversation so smoothly that even Ethan was caught off guard. Privately, they lived parallel lives. Ethan worked late. Claire volunteered at a local literacy program and spent evenings reading or sketching at the kitchen table. They ate dinner together only when schedules aligned, exchanging polite conversation, nothing more. And yet, small things began to shift. One night, Ethan came home past midnight to find Claire asleep on the couch, a book resting on her chest, a lamp still on. He hesitated before gently turning off the light. Another morning, Claire noticed a cut on his hand and wordlessly placed a bandage beside his plate. He thanked her, surprised by the softness in his own voice. The first real fracture came at a board dinner. A senior executive raised the glass and laughed. "We were all curious when Richard announced the marriage, but I see now." Stability suits you, Ethan. Eyes turned to Claire, measuring, judging. Before Ethan could respond, Claire spoke. "Stability is not something you wear," she said calmly. "It is something you practice." The table fell silent. Ethan looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time wondered how much he had underestimated the woman he married. Later that night, as they stood on opposite sides of the penthouse, Ethan broke the silence. "You did not have to defend me." Claire met his gaze. "I was not defending you. I was correcting them." He nodded slowly. "Still, thank you." She smiled, just slightly. Neither of them noticed how the line between arrangement and something else had begun to blur, but they would, soon. The first real test came sooner than Ethan expected. It arrived in the form of a black envelope embossed with gold lettering, delivered to the penthouse on a quiet Thursday morning. Claire found it on the kitchen counter, while Ethan was already halfway through his second call of the day. She read the invitation once, then set it down carefully. That evening, she handed it to him. "The Hale Foundation Winter Gala," Ethan read aloud. "Full board attendance." He looked up. "You do not have to come." Claire shook her head. "I am your wife. This is one of those public moments you warned me about." He studied her for a second. "They can be unkind." "So can I," she replied gently, "but I choose not to be." The gala was held at a historic hotel downtown, the kind with marble staircases and crystal chandeliers that caught the light from every angle. Cameras lined the entrance. Names were called. Applause followed. When Ethan and Claire stepped out of the car together, the noise shifted. Claire wore a deep blue dress, simple in design, tailored perfectly. Her hair was pinned back, her posture straight, her expression composed. No one gasped. No one whispered outright, but eyes followed her, curious, uncertain. Inside, the atmosphere tightened. Old family friends approached with polite smiles that did not reach their eyes. Board members shook Ethan's hand, then turned to Claire with questions that sounded harmless but carried sharp edges. "So, what do you do, Claire?" one woman asked lightly. "I work with adults learning to read," Claire answered. "Literacy changes lives." "Oh," the woman said, blinking. "How meaningful." Ethan felt irritation rise, quick and hot. Then came the moment that changed everything. Midway through the evening, a junior board member approached, clearly flustered. "Ethan, we have a problem. One of our keynote donors is threatening to pull funding." Ethan frowned. "Why?" "He believes the foundation is shifting focus too much toward community programs. He wants results, not stories." Before Ethan could respond, Claire stepped forward. "May I speak with him?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. Every instinct told him to handle this himself. Control the narrative, protect the image. But something in her calm confidence made him nod. They found the donor near the terrace, his expression impatient. Claire introduced herself without mentioning her marriage, without status or apology. She spoke about impact, about adults reading their first book to their children, about dignity, about long-term change versus short-term recognition. She did not beg. She did not argue. She connected. By the end of the conversation, the donor was nodding, his posture relaxed. "You should speak at the board meeting," he said. "Your perspective is needed." As he walked away, Ethan stared at her, stunned. "You just saved $6 million, he said quietly. Claire smiled. "I told you, stability is something you practice." Later that night, as they stood near the balcony overlooking the city, the air between them felt different. "You were incredible," Ethan said. She looked at him, surprised. "Thank you." For the first time, his voice held no distance, no superiority, just respect. And as the city lights shimmered below, Ethan realized something deeply unsettling. He no longer saw Claire as part of a contract. He saw her as his equal. And that realization frightened him more than any threat to his power ever had. After the gala, something between them shifted into unfamiliar territory. Ethan noticed it in the quiet moments first. The way he found himself waiting for Claire in the mornings, lingering in the kitchen longer than necessary. The way her absence in the evenings felt louder than her presence ever had. He told himself it was inconvenience, habit, nothing more. But habits did not make his chest tighten. One evening, Ethan returned home earlier than usual. The penthouse was quiet except for the soft sound of music drifting from the living room. Not orchestral, not dramatic, something gentle. He followed the sound. Claire sat on the floor near the window, papers spread around her, a laptop open beside a stack of notes. She looked up, surprised. "You are home early." "So are you," he replied. "I thought you volunteered on Thursdays." "I do," she said. "Tonight I am preparing a proposal." "For what?" She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "For the foundation, a literacy expansion program, rural counties, mobile units. It is ambitious." Ethan glanced at the documents. He recognized the numbers. The projections were solid, conservative even. "You did this alone?" "I did the research," Claire said. "I did not want to bring it to you unless it was ready." Something about that struck him. Not entitlement, not assumption, just quiet competence. "You know the board will resist," Ethan said. "They do not like change." "I know," she replied. "That is why I prepared answers." She met his gaze. There was no challenge in her eyes, no plea, just certainty. He nodded once. "I will schedule it." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you." That night, they ate dinner together without planning to. Conversation flowed more easily than before. They spoke about books, about travel, about childhood memories. Ethan found himself laughing, genuinely, at something she said. The realization unsettled him. He had built his life on control, on distance, on never needing anyone, and yet, here he was, wondering what Claire thought of him when he was not in the room. The board meeting was the following week. Claire sat beside Ethan at the long table, calm as ever. When it was her turn to speak, she stood and presented her proposal clearly, confidently, without embellishment. Questions came. Doubts followed. She answered them all. By the end of the meeting, approval was not unanimous, but it was enough. As the room cleared, a senior board member approached Ethan quietly. "She is impressive," the man said. "You chose well." Ethan did not correct him. That night, as rain streaked the windows of the penthouse, Ethan found Claire on the balcony, watching the city. "You did not have to take that risk for me," she said without turning. "I wanted to," he replied. She faced him then. "Why?" The question hung between them, heavier than any contract. Ethan searched for the easy answer, the safe one. He did not find it. "Because I trust you," he said finally. Claire looked at him for a long moment. Something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile. She nodded once. "Then we are changing the terms." His breath caught. "What terms?" "The ones you never wrote down," she said softly. Inside, Ethan felt the ground shift again. This time, he did not step back. He stayed. The shift Claire sensed did not go unnoticed by the rest of the world. It began subtly. Articles praising Ethan's leadership started mentioning his wife by name. Not as an accessory, but as a presence, a partner, someone with influence. And with that attention came resistance. The first warning arrived during a late afternoon meeting. Ethan had just finished presenting quarterly projections when a senior investor leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Your numbers are strong," the man said, "but perception matters. The foundation is drifting." Some people believe your wife is steering too much. Ethan felt irritation flare. Claire does not steer anything without my approval. The man smiled thinly. That is exactly the concern. That night, Ethan carried the tension home with him. Claire noticed immediately. You are quiet, she said as they sat across from each other at dinner. I had a difficult meeting, Ethan replied. With me involved? He hesitated. Just for a second. Yes. She set her fork down gently. Then tell me. They think you are changing the company's image, he said. They think I am letting emotions interfere with leadership. Claire absorbed that in silence. When she spoke, her voice was steady. And what do you think? Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. He thought of the gala, the proposal, the way she never pushed, never demanded space that was not offered. I think they are wrong, he said. She nodded. Then we are aligned. But alignment did not stop the pressure. Days later, Ethan received a call from his uncle. You are losing control, Richard said bluntly. I am evolving, Ethan replied. Richard exhaled. You are forgetting the purpose of this marriage. No, Ethan said quietly. I am discovering it. That night, the tension finally cracked. Ethan returned home to find Claire standing by the window, her coat still on. They approached me today, she said without turning. Who? The board, indirectly. They suggested it might be best if I stepped back from public involvement. Ethan's chest tightened. What did you say? I said nothing, Claire replied. I wanted to speak to you first. Silence filled the room. You do not have to protect me, she continued. This arrangement was never meant to cost you power. Ethan crossed the room, stopping a few feet away. You are not a cost. She turned then, her composure finally cracking. This was never supposed to matter, she said softly. You were supposed to tolerate me. I was supposed to remain invisible. And now, her voice faltered. And now it hurts, Ethan finished. The truth settled between them. I do not want to be the reason you lose anything, Claire said. Ethan shook his head. You are the reason I am gaining perspective. For the first time, he reached for her hand. She did not pull away. I built my life on distance, he said, and somehow you walked into it without force, without asking, and everything feels different. Claire's eyes searched his face. Different is dangerous. So is staying the same, Ethan replied. They stood there, hands intertwined, neither willing to name what was growing between them. Outside, the city continued its restless motion. Inside, two people who had entered a contract were standing at the edge of something far more fragile, and neither of them knew yet how much it would cost to protect it. The breaking point arrived quietly. No raised voices, no slammed doors, just a single decision made behind closed doors. Ethan learned about it from the worst possible source. It was a Friday morning when his assistant stepped into the office, her expression tense. There is something you should see. She placed a tablet on his desk. An internal memo. Board level, confidential, proposal, restructure public representation of Hale Group and the Hale Foundation. Recommendation, Mrs. Clare Hale, to step back from all visible involvement to preserve investor confidence. Ethan stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to anger. Who approved this? He demanded. It was discussed informally, his assistant replied. Several members believe your marriage is affecting perception. They think Claire is emotionally influencing your decisions. The words cut deeper than he expected. Did my uncle support this? Ethan asked. There was a pause. Yes. Ethan dismissed everyone and stood alone in his office, the city stretching endlessly beyond the glass. He had spent his life navigating power plays, but this felt different. This felt personal. That evening, he confronted Claire. She was in the penthouse, folding laundry at the dining table when he entered. She looked up, sensing the tension immediately. You saw the memo, she said. You agreed with them? Ethan asked, his voice sharp. Claire set the folded shirt down slowly. I did not agree. I accepted. You accepted? He took a step closer. Without talking to me? I did not want to put you in a position where you had to choose, she said quietly. That was never your decision to make. It was, Claire replied, her voice firm but controlled. This started as an arrangement. I was never meant to stand beside you forever. The words struck like a blow. "So that is what this has been to you?" Ethan asked. "A role you were waiting to exit?" Claire inhaled slowly. "I was protecting you." "By disappearing?" "By stepping back before they force you to," she said. "You have too much to lose." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan said the thing he would regret for a long time. "Maybe they are right," he said. "Maybe you have been influencing me more than I realized." The silence that followed was absolute. Claire looked at him, truly looked at him, as if seeing something fracture behind his eyes. "I see," she said softly. She did not argue. She did not defend herself. She nodded once. "I will move out tonight." Ethan froze. "That is not what I meant." "But it is what you said," Claire replied. She walked past him, calm and composed, and began packing a small suitcase. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching, unable to find the words to stop her. When she reached the door, she turned back. "I never wanted power," she said. "I wanted partnership. If that threatens your world, then I was wrong to believe we were building one together." The door closed behind her with a soft click. No drama, no final speech, just absence. Days passed. The penthouse felt larger, colder. Ethan attended meetings, signed documents, smiled for cameras. Everything returned to order, except him. At night, he stood alone by the window, the city still obedient, still glowing. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Hale realized that winning meant nothing if the person who changed him was gone. The contract was still intact, the marriage legally unchanged. But the woman who made it real had walked away, and this time, no amount of power could bring her back. Ethan did not chase Claire that night. That was the mistake that haunted him most. He told himself it was pride, strategy, timing. He told himself she needed space and that he would fix things when the pressure eased, when the board calmed down, when control was restored. But control never came back. Instead, the days that followed stripped everything bare. At the next board meeting, Ethan approved decisions he would have debated weeks earlier. He nodded where he once challenged. He signed where he once questioned. The room felt satisfied, too satisfied. Afterward, his uncle pulled him aside. "This is how it should be," Richard said. "Clean, focused, uncomplicated." Ethan looked at him, a quiet storm building behind his eyes. "You orchestrated this." "I protected you," Richard replied. "No," Ethan said. "You tested me." Richard held his gaze. "And?" Ethan did not answer. That evening, Ethan stood alone in the penthouse and finally did what he had avoided. He opened the contract. The pages felt heavier than before. Every clause about boundaries, every line about appearances, every sentence designed to keep hearts out of the equation. At the very end was a section Claire had added in her own handwriting, initialed beside a single sentence. "Mutual respect is non-negotiable." Ethan closed his eyes. He saw her standing in the kitchen with a mug in her hands, on the balcony in the rain, across the board table, steady and unafraid. And he understood, with painful clarity, that he had already made his choice. He had just chosen wrong. The next morning, Ethan called an emergency meeting, not a board meeting, a press conference. His assistant hesitated. "Sir, the board will not approve this." "I am not asking for approval," Ethan replied. The room filled quickly. Cameras, reporters, investors watching live streams from across the country. Ethan stepped to the podium alone. "My name is Ethan Hale," he began. "For years, I believed leadership meant distance, control, silence. I was wrong." A ripple moved through the room. "There has been speculation about my marriage," he continued, "about my wife's role, about whether she has influenced my decisions." He paused. "She has, by reminding me that power without purpose is empty." Gasps, whispers. "I am here to say this clearly," Ethan said. "Clare Hale is not stepping back. I am stepping forward. If that costs me my position, then it is a price I accept." Across the city, Claire stood in a small community center, sorting donated books, when her phone began vibrating non-stop. She ignored it at first. Then she heard the murmurs around her. Someone turned on a television. Ethan's face filled the screen. Her breath caught. Back at the podium, Ethan finished with a single sentence. "This company will reflect my values, or it will not have me. The fallout was immediate. 2 board members resigned within hours. Stock dipped, then stabilized. The trust clause Richard had hidden surfaced, triggered by Ethan's public defiance. By nightfall, Ethan Hale was no longer the unquestioned heir. He was something else entirely. He found Clare just before sunset. She was sitting alone on a bench outside the center, watching children leave with books tucked under their arms. "I was wrong," Ethan said, his voice unguarded. "And I am not asking you to come back to a contract." Clare looked at him, eyes steady but cautious. "I am asking you to come back to me," he continued, "without conditions, without silence." She studied him for a long moment. "You gave up everything," she said quietly. "No," Ethan replied. "I gave up control." The city lights flickered on around them. This time, Ethan did not reach for her hand. He waited, and for the first time, the choice was hers. Clare did not answer Ethan right away. The city hummed softly behind them, traffic passing, voices fading in the distance. The bench beneath them was cold, but neither of them moved. "You always made choices quickly," Clare said at last, "even when they hurt people." Ethan nodded. "I know. And now you are asking me to trust that this is different." "Yes," he replied. "Not because I need you to fix me, but because I finally understand what I lose without you." She studied his face, searching for the arrogance that once defined him. It was gone. In its place was something quieter, something exposed. "You did not chase me," Clare said. "You let me walk away." "I wanted to," Ethan admitted. "But I realized if I did, I would only be pulling you back into a life where you were not free. I needed to earn the right to ask." Clare looked down at her hands. For months, she had carried the weight of being tolerated, of being managed, of being careful not to take up too much space. "What happens next?" she asked. Ethan took a slow breath. "If you say no, I will respect it. I will rebuild my life with the understanding that I failed you once. And if I say yes, then we rewrite everything," he said. "No contracts, no performances, just 2 people choosing each other every day." Silence stretched between them again. Then Clare stood. Ethan rose as well, his heart pounding in a way no boardroom ever triggered. She faced him fully now. "I married you because I believed people could change," she said, "not because I thought you already had." Her voice softened. "I will come back," she continued, "but not as someone standing behind you. I stand beside you, or not at all." Ethan did not hesitate. "Beside me, always." They did not kiss, not yet. Instead, Clare extended her hand. He took it. 3 months later, the headlines told a different story. Hale Group announced a new governance structure. Ethan retained leadership, but with shared oversight. The Hale Foundation expanded its literacy programs nationwide, with Clare formally appointed as director. Richard Hale attended the press conference but did not speak. Later that evening, in a small private ceremony on a rooftop overlooking the city, Ethan stood once again across from Clare. This time, there were no cameras, no contracts, no conditions. "I once thought marriage was a transaction," Ethan said quietly. "I was wrong. It is a promise I choose freely." Clare smiled, her eyes bright. "Then choose it well." When he slipped the ring onto her finger, it felt nothing like the first time. It felt real. Months passed. Life settled into something steady and warm. They disagreed. They learned. They grew. Ethan no longer ruled by distance. Clare no longer hid her voice. Together, they built something stronger than power. They built trust. And sometimes, late at night, when the city lights reflected against the glass, Ethan would watch Clare reading at the kitchen table and think about the man he used to be. Arrogant, untouchable, alone. He had been forced into a marriage, but he chose love. And this time, it was not an arrangement. It was forever.